Laten we hopen dat het zo swingend blijft. We gaan luisteren.
Astrologie. Wie kijkt niet af en toe gewoon in een damesblad om te weten wat er voor de komende maand voor zijn sterrenbeeld allemaal in het vat zit? Astrologie. Iets voor damesbladen of iets voor serieuze mensen? Nou, mensen die in astrologie geloven zeggen het is een serieuze wetenschap. Het is een ervaringswetenschap. Het is gebaseerd op heel veel ervaring. Mensen die zeiden als de sterren zo en zo staan gebeurt er dit. Daar zijn regels uitgekomen over bijvoorbeeld de invloed van de planeten. Als Mars daar staat gebeurt er dit. En dat wordt ook wel gecontroleerd. Je kunt namelijk achteraf gaan kijken wat op een bepaald moment gebeurde en of dat klopt. Toch blijft het giswerk. Want anders zouden we natuurlijk allemaal in de astrologie geloven. Een van de problemen van astrologie is het visualiseren. Hoe laat je nou zien waar je mee bezig bent? Hoe laat je nou zien waar die planeten staan? U heeft vast wel eens zo'n horoscoop gezien. Dat is vreselijk ingewikkeld. Met allemaal lijsten en cijfertjes en rare symbolen. Dat kan ook anders. En vandaag praten we met iemand uit Amerika die een speciaal systeem heeft ontwikkeld om die visualisatie van zo'n horoscoop makkelijk te maken. Zijn naam is Dusty Park en zijn bedrijf levert die horoscopen op het internet. Dus we gaan dit gesprek verder in het Engels doen, want Dusty Park komt uit Amerika.
How you doing, Luke?
Hi, Dusty. Dusty, you're from California, are you?
Yes.
Do all Californians look like you?
Well, nobody looks like anybody.
No, but this is a little bit of the Marin style, or not?
Well, it's my style.
It's my style. You're an astrologer by profession.
For 25 years now.
For 25 years. How do you get interested in stars?
Well, what led me personally to astrology is that I noticed cycles in my own life. And when somebody finally explained to me when I was 17 that in astrology, it is not just the sun, but all the planets and their relationships to each other, similar to molecular physics, where the number of electrons around the nucleus determines the physical properties of matter. The shape of the solar system, or the macroatom, the solar system, that shape determines the consciousness properties of individuals that are born here on the planet. Because that consciousness... But
how did you find out? You say that you saw some regular patterns?
I saw regular patterns in my life.
I see them too, but for the moon, only for the sun. I
noticed a 2-year pattern in my own life, running 6 years, that every other year I would have a burst of activity, a burst of motivation, a sense of rebirth and motivation. And as it turns out, the 2-year cycle is Mars, which rules action, motivation, drive, and desire. And so I really immediately correlated that I have a strong Mars, and no wonder I was feeling it, because it comes around again every 2 years.
Now, when I say you have a strong Mars, that's related to energy. Now, we know that because the god Mars in the old Roman pantheon,
right,
he was also the war god.
Yes.
So there is a relationship between all these things.
There is a symbolic relationship between the principles of the characters of all the Roman and Greek gods to their correlative astrological symbolism as a planet.
Maybe this is too far, but do you know whether the name for Mars in, say, the Hindu language also has a connotation of war?
I know that the meaning of Mars in the Hindu connotation is the same as the meaning of Mars in every astrological system found in every culture on Earth, which most developed cultures have had histories of their own versions of astrology. And it's amazing that even though these different cultures in different times, in different remote regions from the world that had no contact with each other, all these cultures, without reservation, had the same identical meaning for every single planet in terms of its influence in the affairs of men.
Do you regret not living in the days of Atlantis, where you would have been not only dressed like this, but you would be probably a high priest, or in the days of Salomo, where you would be sitting next to the king and say, hey, wait a moment, this is not the right time for a decision yet?
Well, interestingly enough, astrology, as developed in the culture in advance of our own, known as Atlantis, was one of the few technologies, if not the only technology, that could survive the dissolution of the culture of high technical stature, because astrology, by its very nature, could be handed down in an oral tradition, and since the planets themselves could be viewed with the naked eye, up to Saturn, that the patterns and the cycles of these planets could be marked by man even in his, Egyptian days and the beginning of
and the Chinese did it, and
the Chinese.
Everybody has done it, and you say they came to the same.
This knowledge was handed down from Atlantis and remained intact as an oral tradition, and so only the astrologers really took the time to study these things and know these things. But in terms of what's more exciting, would I rather be, up before the court jester with whispering to the ear of the king? I think that it's a lot more interesting time to be alive now with the field of astrology, because we're at a very interesting point with respect to the human experience. And the human experience...
Is that true? I mean, we have the year 2000, and people, for some reason, have believed that the year 2000 was important. And we have the little millennium bug that made it important. But is it important in the sense of what we see in the sky? Is something happening on January 1st in the sky? Well, something is happening, but something important?
What is happening that's important is the collective agreement that man shares through his relationship with time. And in that collective relationship, which is using our current calendar, which is different than the Chinese calendar and different than the Hebrew calendar and different than other calendars that predate our quote unquote 2,000-year-old system of reckoning time, is the fact that everybody's agreed upon it. And we're now moving into quote-unquote new territory, 3 zeros after a 2. It's the new territory and the feeling of it collectively.
No, but we feel that.
That date specifically isn't astrologically near as significant as what man, in his myopia, failed to do through his lack of understanding of the nature of reality. He did not make his computers and his tools of information. He didn't make these tools that operate on the basis of the agreement to incorporate the true nature of the agreement in the technology. And that's why when the reality of the agreement moves through the technology that has not been made to encompass its true reckoning with 4 digits instead of 2, that's why the agreement isn't going to pass through these non-Y2K compliant systems. The agreement can't move through the system. And so man is going to be taught an interesting lesson about the nature of information.
But coming back to astrology, you say so. Your charts don't indicate that January 1 or 2 or 3 is dramatically bad. But what you have told me before, that somewhere in May there might be something big happening. Is that still related to that coming to the surface of what actually happens around the millennium?
Well, we're going to be in the new territory, just like every day is a new day, but we're going to all be in the collective agreement that it's the new century. If we have an experience on a global scale where the deadline is the same for everybody, nobody can change it, and Y2K rolls over, and a certain number of systems work and a certain number don't, and the ones that are really important that aren't working, that they're not telling us about because it's not in their interest to do so, over time, during the first 4 months of 2000, I feel that we have a picture of accumulating resistance. And this accumulated resistance, which is related to the technology and the computers and the information systems not being able to keep the agreement.
Okay, but in other words,
it can't all break at once, but moving into this new territory, I feel the cycles, the convergence of cycles in the first 10 days of May are so interesting based on the rulerships of these cycles to economics, commerce, and governmental institutions.
So, in other words, you say there is indeed an astrological development in the first 4 months, peaking out in May.
That's right.
That might have to do with the millennium. But anyway, something big is going to happen around May 10.
Yes.
Now, we are talking about astrology, but you have a very unique system. It's called the digital time capsule.
Yes.
And by the way, this is all on the internet. You can find it.
You can download it from the internet. Awarenet.com.
Awarenet.com. Now, that's clear. What we're looking here is a system which looks a little bit what I know from, say, when I look in the magazines or in the astrology charts. A horoscope.
These are the zodiac symbols.
Zodiac symbols, and I see the moon, and I see the sun, and I see
Venus. which looks like the female symbol, and,
Yes.
and Mars, which is the male symbol.
Male symbol, and a couple of other planets, which I assume are Neptune and Jupiter and all that.
That's right. Uh-huh.
Okay. You have portrayed this in a very different way. Hey, this is not your normal horoscope.
Well, typically horoscopes and computer-generated horoscopes are fairly static in that they are only representing one moment of time at a time.
Like
And-
your birth date.
Like your birth
or
date,
today.
or whatever date. It doesn't. The other programs out there are different from mine in that they're static. Ours is dynamic. It's fluent.
Show that,
It
because
actually has motion.
Okay, so what we
Fluent
see
motion.
here is the stars and the moon moving.
These are always planets. We don't really relate to stars in astrology, but these are the symbols for the planets,
Yeah.
and they're all moving according to their relative
Okay.
motions with each other.
And the relative motion of the moon is very fast.
It's
yes?
the fastest planet. Yes,
Yeah?
it is.
Because here we have the date, and we go day by day, and the moon. This is 28 days?
Well, right now we're up to March already. I think we're moving at 1/4 day per moon click.
Click. So this allows people to see, because these lines, they have a special meaning. Just try to explain. It's going a little bit slower now. What these lines mean.
Well, the reason I made it go slower is so that we can chat before it gets to May. In astrology, energy manifests through form. And it is the form that will allow you to identify the significance of a particular energy. So all these colored lines represents, like here, this is a division of the whole by 2, 180 degrees apart.
Wait a moment. The moon is opposite
Neptune.
which means that if you would look at the sky, there are.
It would be similar to a full moon between the sun and moon and a full
Yes.
moon. So that's a division of the whole by 2. Here we have a long blue line from the moon to Venus, and that's a division of the whole by 3, or called a trine. And the trine is the most harmonious energy. So each of these divisions of the whole by a whole number, which is a third of a circle, a sixth of a circle, a quarter of a circle, an eighth of a circle, a fifth of a circle, each of these specific divisions carries with it a very identifiable energetic meaning between the two planets. In this case, the moon, which is the emotions and feeling, are an awareness to Neptune, which is spirituality and dreams and projecting your vision. Or in this case, Venus, which is love and relationship and sharing, is in harmony to nourishment and the home and warm feelings.
So your way of making a horoscope, a dynamic horoscope, I would call it, allows you to see these developments. But if I start moving it again, so you see that like these red lines here, they come up and they go.
That's
Because,
right.
Of course, you're not always totally square or totally opposite, but you come close. And so the force, so to speak, increases and
That's
then
right.
diminishes.
The focus gets stronger the closer the perfect angle is reached. And once it's reached the perfect angle, the influence starts to subside as it becomes more and more imperfect.
Yeah, I see. Now, we're just getting to the end of April, and we see that all the planets get in the same corner, so to speak.
They're all on the
They're
same
all moving
side.
here.
Right. Exactly. In this case, the Earth is in the center. That's where we're at. So from an Earth point of view, a geocentric perspective, all the planets are over by where the sun is. And so in the month of April and the month of May, when we're looking at the sun, we're looking at where not only the sun is, but Venus and Mercury and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn.
In practical terms, if you would look at the sky, you see the sun, would you see the planets around it? Which is very hard because...
Well, you can't because the sun's so bright, but barring that, yes, you would.
You would.
Yes.
So if, for instance, there would be a solar, how do you call it? An eclipse?
An eclipse.
An eclipse, which takes the sun away, you would see all those planets
You
around
would see
it.
all the planets very, very close to the sun. Absolutely.
Okay. Which normally, like, during the night, if the moon is there, you sometimes see them around the moon.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, some planets are more close to the moon than others, are they?
Mm-hmm. In fact, even just before sunrise or just after sunset, within the first 30 minutes before the sun has risen or the first 30 minutes after the sun has set, you will see in the month of April and May a number of very closely spaced stars, which are in fact the planets Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, and Mercury and Venus.
And all coming together. Now, this looks like when I talk in old Greek terms, it's like the gods are having a party there. They're all coming together. Now, is that good or is that bad?
Well,
or is it a party? Is it a war?
it's in some senses more useful not to think in complete dualistic terms as good and bad, because what we really have here is a set of individual cycles that are in fact to be taken as a whole, but for ease of our comprehension, we usually dissect them and talk about one pair of relationships at a time. What gets very complex and interesting at a time when multiple planets, as we have in April and May, line up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets going to be lined up very closely with each other. These influences of alignment create fusion and merging and create a synthesis of this combined qualities. And
so, would you say these are heavy times, these are busy times, these are times where things happen?
Well, it's certainly times when things happen. For instance, the Jupiter and Saturn cycle is well known to influence governments and business. Saturn is the principle of form and structure, law, and all the order of everything, which is the laws that man makes, the buildings that he makes, every system that he makes, all the conventions that literally are taken as man's creation of society itself. And then Jupiter represents the philosophy or the expansion or the transmission or the teaching of the whole. So Saturn is contractive and Jupiter is expansive.
Let's go actually to that date a little bit closer. What
okay.
is it?
Yeah, we're going up to the 10th.
How do you stop it here?
Just the space bar.
They're coming very close here, yes?
Yes, they're coming very close. Now this is the new moon on May 4th. And here we have the largest grouping of all the planets together, all within 30 degrees. We have Venus, Mercury, the Sun and Moon at new moon, Jupiter and Saturn, and Mars.
And there's an opposition with...
Well, it's not quite. This is actually 3/7 of a circle to the planet Pluto.
Okay, so Pluto is not really in the picture, but and these
these are spiritual energies connecting to Pluto, which is transformational energies. As there are these, this purple one is a transformational energy. But the red lines between this grouping and Uranus and Neptune are showing pressure for change and pressure to dissolve something.
Okay. Just let's talk in American terms. You're from California. Is that around the time that the primaries are over and that we know who's going to be the next president, or is this just the time?
This is before the primaries are completed for both the Democratic and the Republican parties. This is before the time. However, there can be no question. This will be the absolute shakeout time with respect to all those kind of electoral races. There'll be polarization of opinions will be occurring at this time.
But so is it possible that because of all this energy that fairly unknown candidates might turn up?
Absolutely. The underdog is highly favored in a condition like this.
The underdog. So we had Stephen Gaskin here.
Yes.
He runs for the Green Party in America. So and he wants to legalize marijuana. So maybe let's root for him. But so basically, and this goes for everybody. This is not an individual horoscope.
This is the collective influence of the whole world. Yes, it is.
Now, you can use this. Well, we were just talking about presidency, but you could also say, what influence does this have on the business, like on the stock market?
Well, for instance, I was trying to mention something about the Jupiter-Saturn cycle. Saturn is a 29-year cycle of building, form, structure, and purpose. Notice that the Berlin Wall, built in 1961, and just shy of 29 years later, it was torn down. Well, Saturn ruled the wall itself. It rules the principle of limits. But one Saturn cycle later, it was lined up with Neptune. Neptune is the principle of dissolving borders, dissolving limits. And what happened to the Berlin Wall when that Saturn had gone one complete cycle and lined up with Neptune at the very end? It dissolved the very limiting border that it represented, and the jubilation in consciousness of the German people to be free from a collectively imposed limit was tremendous.
The main objection against horoscopes is that, this sounds in retrospect very nice and you have a good explanation, but now, yesterday we had Mr. Dollard here, who is a Dutch astrologer, and he says, but wait a moment, a situation like that with all these planets is in fact not so important. And he went back into history because this happened last August also a little bit.
Last August was a grand cross.
A grand cross was a little bit different, but he said everybody expected big shit to happen and nothing happened.
Well, I personally was of the camp that said that nothing was going to happen directly as a result of that in terms of disasters and so forth. The one thing that I personally claimed was that there would be shifts of power. And right in the middle of the August 7th, 8th, 9th window, Yeltsin declared the new prime minister or whatever, Lubidin or whatever his name is.
But has that really changed the situation?
No, I'm only saying that was an official change of power. And when it happened, it was noted as a very interesting development because no one was expecting the shift of power to occur the way it did. Not that the ramifications of it were immediate. But let me further explain that August 7th was the peak date for the Grand Cross. That we're speaking
Can we go back to that date, actually?
Oh, yeah. It's a very interesting looking date.
So the nice thing about this program is you can go forward and backwards. And if you order a horoscope like that, you get your own personal chart with all these movements for a period. So you can check every day where the situation is going. Yeah?
Okay, so here we have, I've got it on August 8th. It was August 7th in California. I've got this set up for Amsterdam. We see this big cross, a square with a yellow cross in the middle of it, and that is the tense energy. So that was a focal point, a window, kind of like a plateau, where energies took on a certain balancing act of change, okay? 2 weeks later, I said August 24th was going to be high point of the market. August 25th was the high point of the market.
Wait, you predicted 21st?
I predicted the 24th, and then on August 25th was the high point of the market. And I feel directly in relationship to this window, that high point, then within 30 days, 1,000 points were lost on the market. So there was a shift.
Try to say that. So you say individuals are influenced by these constellations of the planet. Yes, they feel that in some subconscious way. Their life has changed. So when you say the indications are on the 24th, that people might say, "Oh God, I'm going to invest a little bit more." It of course takes some time for that to happen before those decisions are turned into a stock market situation. Is that a logical explanation?
Well, it could be more look like a wave. The wave comes along. You say you're on a boat on the water, and as far as you're concerned, you're at sea level. But if the wave rises up, and the whole of the water rises up with you, the wave takes the boat with it. And so you rise with the wave. So that's what happened in August, is the energy of the collective rose with the wave in this enthusiasm and confidence and sense of expansion which was present in the third week of August, which then resulted in the high point in the stock market.
And as you predicted, said it would go down again. So let's run it again to this year.
Now we're going to go up, yeah.
You can go backwards and forward in time. So here we go. All those planets come together. So your feeling is that at that time, things that were hidden, things that were suppressed, maybe because of the millennium, will come to the surface.
Okay. I think that the most positive energy in the first 10 days of May is going to be May 8th, where we see the moon linking up with 4 lines of positive energy to 4 of the planets lined up. But I think that May 10th is the day that has the greatest potential reaction for sudden change and tension. And this is a situation energetically that supports change. And institutions or entities, which are typically big business and government, that have a vested interest in perpetuating the status quo, lose in a situation like this, because this situation is irrepressible change, and change that tends to move the energies to a more balanced and a a more leveling of the playing field, so that things that are unequal become more equal generally. And so this
heavy times. I mean, the newspapers will be full. Is that a...
Oh, the newspaper is going to have some great stories at this time. There's no question about it.
I want to know, what does this mean? Now, what does this mean, say, for you, Dusty Park? How does your chart relate to this day?
Well,
because the stars are there, or excuse me, the planets are there, just for everybody.
We can say for certainty that individuals, certain individuals are going to be receiving this particular pattern of energy because their chart is set up geometrically to have the sails of their chart filled with this energy, pushing them, and the people that are...
So you say some people will feel this...
Yeah, and I'll tell you the birth dates of the people are people born approximately May 10th, November 11th, August 8th, and February 9th.
They're going to feel it positive or not?
And you know, they give a couple of days either side of all those dates, but those 4 sets of people born in those windows are going to be blasted by this energy in a more action-oriented way. In other words, they're going to feel motivated and they're going to take action, or something's going to be forcing their hand.
Revolution. Wow. So if you plan a revolution, May 10 is a good day. Now,
well, it may be a good time for a revolution in a lot of individual people's lives, or it could be that they're taking significant action in achieving their dreams during these times, and it's all coincident. It's all synchronistic to this energy, and the outcomes and the trajectories of their lives are working in harmony together. Okay. Now, let me give you a couple of other dates of individuals who are going to receive this energy, the same energy on May 10th, in a much more positive way.
December 1349. Well, you have my chart there. So, if you now make this personal, what happens for me on March 10, May 10?
Well, we should really throw your chart up there if we're going to do that.
Yes,
I can't remember it.
Get my chart up.
Okay, let me throw out these other 2 dates first, though.
Okay,
so 2 other birth date windows for individuals that are going to be significantly affected by this May 8th, 9th, 10th focus of energy are going to be those individuals born in September, approximately September 10th, and those people born in January, approximately the 10th through 12th of January. Those 2 groupings of people whose birthdays in those windows are going to find this energy primarily positive because they're receiving it in great harmony. Now, specifically, we'll bring your chart up on screen, and your chart has an amazing case because it's receiving the energy both in a very strong action way and also in a very strong harmonious way together. And that's the best possible case because if you're going to have action energy, you won't have a lot of harmony with it. Otherwise, it's a lot of energy, but you would really get exhausted because of the energy output. But if you have a balance of harmony as well, you're very much better suited. Okay, so let's see. 11.
So wait a moment. Now we have an individual chart. First, let's see. I see there's now an inner ring. I see still all the basic planets that we saw before on the outer ring, but this is like my ring. Yes?
Okay. The outer ring is the fixed positions, which is the reference point of the planets' positions on the date you were born. And the inner ring are the planets in the sky on the date listed down here.
Now, just before they were in another point, but that doesn't matter. They were all together. They were grouped there.
Oh, I'm down to 1 minute. That's why. Okay, now we're getting it.
It's like a scary day with a lot of red lines. What is red lines?
Okay. Well, basically, as we can see, this point in the chart is the point where the sun will be at 12 noon, the absolute zenith. And this point in a person's chart represents their career, their reputation, or their self-actualization. And typically, when you have planets up there lined up with this, especially if they're slow-moving, especially if they're slow moving, they have a deeper or longer lasting influence. And in this case, we have Saturn and Jupiter and Mercury and the Sun all lined up within very few degrees on the point in your chart representing your career, your goals, and your self-actualization. And this is both generating action energy to transformation, which is Pluto.
Maybe I should run for president in this case.
And it's showing harmony to Saturn, which is your personal goals. Okay? So not only are you able to manifest order, form, and plans and strategies in a great deal of harmony, but you have a tremendous amount of energy that transforms the resources required for the execution of these plans and strategies into the actions that bring about the ultimate goals of those plans and strategies. So this is harnessing the action and transformation with the strategic and the plan and the order manifesting.
I'm one of the people who, amidst the situation that many people will feel influenced, let's put that in general terms.
Yes.
So when there's lots of action in the sky, I'm one of the people who can profit from it or benefit or feel positive effects.
You're certainly one of the people that are going to, number one, feel the effects prominently. It will.
When you say prominently, what do you mean? Will someone come by and say, "Hey, Mr. Sadi, here's 5,000 guilders"?
Let me explain this. This is your career and reputation. So this is a place where you are seen publicly. Okay? So somebody that has Jupiter up here, Jupiter is the principle of transmission, of knowledge, of a message, of understanding. Quite simply, you're in the publishing business. You are a Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules publishing. It rules all sorts of information. It rules the issue of transmitting one to many. So, being a Sagittarius, and being that this is Jupiter, the planet that rules Sagittarius, is now up here at the 10th house cusp of your self-actualization, and it's lined up with Saturn, which is goals and purposefulness. This is a significant period of time where not only will you continue to do what you've been doing for many years, which is being a Jupiterian, publishing, transmitting sort of person whose intentions and whose manifestations in life has been simply to be the vehicle or the focal point for the transmission of a wide array of informations and knowledges, some commercial, some spiritual, some transformative, and some just collectively entertaining. This is a point in time when your message and the efforts that you have with your whole information infrastructure in its collective effort to be purposeful and transmit a message, this is a period of time when that message is going to be more significant, have a greater resonance with the recipients or the audiences intended, and may in fact cross over into a broader bandwidth of the population than would typically be the case.
So this will happen in all the people's life at different points, that there are things you do, like I do, that I feel many people don't understand. Some people do understand, but many people don't understand. The politicians don't understand. And I feel like it's seen as negative or aggressive or whatever. And then sometimes you feel that changes, that suddenly there's a shift in the perception of other people of what you do. And I feel I haven't changed. I have not changed. But the perception of what I do has changed. So that's an example of what happens in people's life.
You're right. But what you have just described is this perception that you have changed is not that at all. What you really are describing is other people's perception of what you were saying has changed, but you've been saying the same thing all along. And the reason their perception has changed is that their experiences now are giving them confirming and vindicating qualities of information or knowledge of actions or situations that are consistent and are supported by the things that you've been saying all along.
Okay, now take that, say, into a political person. Do you have something of a political person, like who's a presidential candidate in the States?
Well, every one of the presidential candidates.
You have them in your system, or
I do not have the relevant ones in the system available right now. But I can assure you, those candidates whose charts are in harmony with this energy are going to pull ahead. And if that happens to be an underdog, then that underdog is going to get a huge amount of wind in their sails. And if any of the
people want to know how this relates to practical terms, in the sense that should I expect, as you say, there will be turmoil building up to that point. In Dutch terms, that might mean that the cabinet falls, yes? That we have new elections, but then the new election should be early next year. And then, is this a day that you could say, hey, wow? Or is this the day that the cabinet might fall?
Well, that's a good point. Let's just say this. The general principle would be here that parties or entities supporting change for the benefit of the collective or the whole, and whose attempts are perceived by those in power that would preserve the status quo, those whose efforts are the voice for change that would try to offer and implement greater equality across the board for whatever situations, those are the people and whose messages are going to be gaining the strength of the day. And those parties and individuals whose message represents staying the same, holding on, if it isn't fixed, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, type of attitude, those are the people that are going to be losing out.
Okay, but that's what I experience in my life, and many people say, oh, that's nice. It's a good day on a horoscope, but wait for 2 weeks. I mean, sometimes I feel good, and and then I had some illness, and it goes away, and that. But Jesus, 2 weeks later, I feel shit again. So it's always going away, or not?
That's right.
Yes. So this was a high point. So where am I going to suffer?
You want to know when you're going to suffer, huh?
Yeah. Then come near.
Well, I'm just flying really quickly here.
Yeah.
And I see a date right now that, see, this is a day,
that is
February 6th, in your chart, that has a lot of energy for sudden change and power struggles, for instance. And you could be unexpectedly entrenched with a struggle with somebody with large political power or entrenched vested interests during this time. You are, in this case, representing an idealistic stance and the stance towards equality, but you are being faced or challenged here in this one with the will and the coercive entrenchment of vested interests. Okay. That's something that's going on.
The funny thing is, I was planning to go to Suriname in that time frame. Maybe planning to see Mr. Bouters or some of the other people.
If you were not here, okay, and you were traveling, this would be a day that traveling would be actually perhaps the most dangerous day, because this is a day of sudden and unexpected conflicts with authority.
Okay. But do you know in your personal life? Well, maybe in Suriname that will happen. In your personal life, you look at these things and say, oh, this is not a good traveling day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you have to travel anyway, even though you know it's not necessarily the best one. And just the awareness that a given astrological pattern is...
But how does that work? Like we're sitting here, can you show me your own chart for today?
Okay, and you want me to show you what in my own chart for today?
I'm not going to tell him yet.
Oh, okay.
Kijk, wat ik hem niet ga vertellen nu is dat ik hem dadelijk een enorme klap op zijn kop ga geven. Dat weet hij niet en verstaat u nu ook niet in het Engels. Want dat zou dan uit moeten komen, niet waar? Als daar voor vandaag een astrologisch teken is van een klap op zijn kop, dan zou dat dus nu duidelijk moeten worden. We testen altijd het systeem. Okay, this is your chart today.
Oh, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay, let's see. Today is the 15th. This is it right now.
And what is the time now?
Well, this is for Des Moines, Iowa.
So it's 6 hours later. So
let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. That's a 7-hour time difference. So I need to go 7 hours earlier than that which is listed, and it's 9:30 here.
So it's 12. It's 5. You have to go a little bit.
Okay, hold on. So that's 3:30 in the afternoon here. That's what I need to show. 3:30 in the afternoon. That's close enough. Okay, that's it. That's the chart.
Now, does this chart indicate that I would kill you right now?
You know what this chart shows, though?
No.
Check this out.
Okay.
The moon rules the public.
Yes.
And it's in opposition and awareness to Jupiter, and Jupiter rules transmission. And right now,
Yes.
I am being recorded on your TV show to be transmitted to the public for the purposes of expanding their world or giving them information of an expansive nature, which is just like moon
I was
opposed
just telling
to Jupiter.
the public I was going to hit you on the head. And
Check this one. Now, here's the other good one. This is Mars conjunct Uranus, which is it's like a daredevil or sudden releases of violence or sudden releases of action or aggressive energy. It's very prone to accidents and so forth. So, you could have started to grab my neck and then slipped and actually had me on the floor gasping for breath.
Okay, so
fortunately,
it could have happened. In fact, it happened because there is a certain... but do you think people really like... Now, in your chart, this brings up this situation. How hard is the information? Like one of the questions I have always is, could you predict your own death based on these charts?
Well, I've never predicted anyone's death.
But could you see?
But the principle of death is a major transformation in life, and that is what we're predicting in people's charts all the time. We're isolating.
But it would be so simple to say. Okay,
looking at major transformations.
Listen, statistically, we know when people were born most of the time and when they die. Yes, sometimes fairly accurate. But has nobody checked all the moments of death and say, hey, Kennedy was dying in a moment. Wow, here comes Mars.
People have studied the moments of death of assassinations of prominent public figures, and the earmarks or the astrological clues or codes do bear out the general principles of sudden change, sudden violence, and hidden motives or hidden actions. Okay, the hidden actions is key to all assassinations, but these things converge because the hidden actions become public at the moment of the attempt or successful effort at an assassination.
But so, could you refine this whole horoscope business to the point where you would say, okay, now in the next 5 years, these are the dates that you better keep covered?
Well, if somebody
can you beat the system or not?
Can you beat the system?
Can you beat the planets?
There's 2 dates and 2 times that are locked in complete fate and destiny and will forever remain so. That is the moment of one's birth and the moment of one's death.
Een brainmachine is een apparaatje dat door middel van licht en geluid de frequentie van de hersengolven beïnvloedt. De gebruiker heeft een bril en een koptelefoon op en lichtsignalen en geluidspulsen nemen hem mee naar verschillende staten van bewustzijn zoals ontspanning, concentratie, meditatie, slaap.
Polsdiagnose, gewichtsproblemen, Ayurvedische therapie? Kom naar Health & Wholeness, Leidse Straat.
Nieuwe lijnvlucht Brussel-Paramaribo Intertropicaal vertrekt iedere zondag tegen het beste tarief. Reken maar. Extra veel bagage, gratis touringcar naar uw citybeurt. Retour 2 maanden geldig. Voor meer Air Smiles boek Intertropicaal bij uw reisbureau.
Als je nu bij Telepoint een BEN-aansluiting neemt, krijg je een Nokia 3210 GSM-toestel voor maar 129 gulden. Je betaalt bij BEN geen abonnementskosten en je belt altijd voor een kwartje per minuut, dag en nacht. Je hoort het, voor de beste BEN GSM-deal moet je bij Telepoint zijn. Utrechtse straat 7072, Buikslotermeerplein 193, naast de HEMA en in Purmerend op de Westerstraat 108. Herken